Let's have the conversation that people love to sidestep, because anti-Blackness does not just come from white folks, and it for sure did not just appear out of nowhere. And if we're serious about solidarity, we have to trace where it actually started. Now, first thing, this is not about all Asian communities. That's lazy, and I am not lazy. But when we talk about patterns, we're talking about systems. And the system made sure that anti-Blackness wasn't just exported, it was globalized. See, when European powers colonized Asia, they didn't just take the land, they also imported hierarchy. They pushed the idea that lighter skin meant civility, wealth, purity, and darker skin was poverty, backwardness, and danger. And that colonial script seeped deep, from India to the Philippines, all the way to Japan. Skin tone became the ladder, and whiteness was always at the top. If we fast forward to Asian immigration in the US, you arrive in a country that's already built on anti-Blackness, already criminalizing Black life. And what do politicians do? They dangle a deal. If you distance yourself from Black people, we'll give you a seat closer to whiteness. And that's where the model minority myth comes in. It was never a compliment, it was always a weapon. The government used it in the 1960s to say, hey, look at these Asian immigrants. They work hard, they follow the rules. Why can't Black folks do the same? And that's when it turns survival into separation. And here's the ugly truth. Some communities actually leaned into it, right? Because of your family's safety, your visa, your livelihood depends on being seen as the good immigrant, you'll play the role, even if it means stepping on Black people to do it. But don't get it twisted. This was not organic hate. It was policy. It was propaganda. And it worked because it kept us divided while white supremacy stayed in power. So when we talk about Asian anti-Blackness today, whether it shows up in colorism, anti-Black policing in Asian-owned shops, or even silence around Black death, we've got to understand that it didn't just fall from the sky. It was planted by colonizers, by governments, by systems that profit when we fight each other and not them. And until we name that history, we are not building solidarity. We're just repeating the cycle. And I, for one, refuse to keep the cycle quiet.
Hi family, how you doing? Welcome back again to my channel. My name is Olivia and thank you so much for your love and your support. Okay, so family, when you talk about anti-blackness, it's not just only white people, right? It's not just only white people are the ones that hate black people. This anti-blackness is global. I would say it's global because majority of other communities too don't really like black people. And the funny part is this: black people are the most sweetest people when you come closer to them because these are the people that welcome you, like they will make you feel at home. So when I see people hate on them, I'll be like, why are you guys hating on these people without no reason? Because I've not seen any reason why you will hate on them. Why will you hate on people that is so fragile? Like, why would you hate on people? And now, as Asian people are also coming out to talk about their racist, you know, um, anti-blackness. I think a woman said that growing up, her mama doesn't allow her to, play with black people. Even when she get bullies in school from white people, and the black people are the only ones that welcomes her and make her feel okay and confidence in her body and her color and stuff like that. Then when she comes back to the house, her mommy will always ask her, who and who do you mingle with? She will explain to her mama that, oh, she met new black friends, for example, and the mommy will be like, no, you don't play with them, they are horrible, they are dangerous. Like, are you guys kidding me? And this whole thing is getting out of hand. Okay, it's getting out of hand. Black people hate Africans hate black people, immigrants hate foundational black people, Asian people too hate like white people also. Like, how on earth are you guys going to hate just one people? This whole thing is getting crazy and I'm confused. Like, I really want to know what is the main reason why you all are hating these people. I'm still yet to figure the whole thing out. Okay. So, family, let's keep on watching together. Let's hear more about Asian people on why they think or why they hate black people. Let me know what you think about this video in the comment section, okay? And I'll come back with more commentary. So don't go anywhere. Stay with me, family.
This and tell us what they be telling y'all at home that make y'all not like us so bad. So you already know a lot of what my content covers, like racial triangulation, the model minority myth, Asian businesses in black neighborhoods, affirmative action, and so on. As for what I was told in the home behind closed doors when I was growing up, that's not the most fun trip down memory lane, but I always like to be honest about acknowledging anti-Blackness among Asian Americans, especially when the call was coming from my own house, so here we go. I first became aware of my mom's anti-Blackness when I started kindergarten, and it mostly centered around avoiding interactions with Black people and not allowing me to be exposed to anything that she considered Black culture. So if we were walking and she saw a Black person, she would pull me closer to her. If we were in the car in a parking lot and saw a Black person in the parking lot, she would make a point to lock the doors, and I wasn't allowed to listen to rap or Michael Jackson or Tina Turner. And she was hypocritical about that, because I wasn't allowed to listen to Cyndi Lauper or Madonna either. She would call it trash music and say that it was going to be a bad influence. But if it was a white artist, it was not racialized. It was only when it was Black artists that it was racialized. And another thing that I think is kind of typical is, as a musician, there were a lot of Black artists whom she respected and enjoyed, but she would always say that one Black artist is the exception, the rest are bad influences. When I went to school, if I came home and said I made a friend, her first question would be white or Black. And that drove me nuts, because in preschool, I dealt with a lot of bullying and discrimination because of being Asian, so it didn't make sense to me that she wanted me to turn around and do that very same thing to my Black classmates, whom she knew nothing about, on the basis of their skin color. And when I wouldn't stay away from my Black friends, she would resort to making up justifications as to why it was harmful for me. She would say they're going to hurt me and they're going to be a bad influence because they fight and they swear and they're not good students. And of course, none of that was true. And in my household, it was not physically or emotionally safe to voice your opinions, but about that I would, because it literally angered me. And then she would resort to physical violence. And that sealed the deal in my mind that prejudice is purely irrational, because none of her claims had any basis in reality, and that's why she had to resort to physical force. Unfortunately, I think that when parents resort to intimidation and violence to instill prejudice in their children, a lot of times it works. But I was very lucky, because the principal of my elementary school was a Black woman who implemented a program called Students Educating Each Other About Discrimination. And that wasn't centered on racial discrimination, it was about discrimination in general. But in that program, we learned to have discussions about discrimination and to identify it and disrupt it. Which at that age just means if you witness discrimination, say it's discrimination and articulate how you know that it's discrimination. So from learning that very powerful tool at school, I was able to identify that what my mom was doing at home was wrong. Additionally, the principal was a Black woman, so I had a Black woman in a position of leadership as a role model. And in my school district, she wasn't a token. They really valued Black leadership, from teachers to administration, guidance counselors, all the way up to superintendents. And so I was surrounded by Black role models who made me see that reality did not line up with what my mom was trying to teach me. The straw that broke the camel's back was sometime around the ages of between 7 and 9. I was planning a birthday party, and I told my mom that I want to invite my friend Keisha, which I knew was going to be an issue, but I thought I would try. And she said no, and I said, fine, then I don't want to have a birthday party, and she made me have the birthday party. So now that felt like that's not only cruel to me, but that's cruel to my friend Keisha, whom you don't even know because you refused to meet her. Shortly after that, we were walking in the mall, and my mom did this thing that she often did, which is she sees Black people minding their own business, and under her breath, she mumbles a derogatory term in Chinese for Black people. And I remember I pulled back on her hand and faced her, and I said, they are not doing anything. You don't know them. The next time you do that, I am going to go up to them, and I'm going to tell them what you said. And believe it or not, the fear of exposure by me actually made her tone it down, and she stopped doing that in public. Fortunately, my mom did not live and die that way. In later years, she came around to seeing and later openly admitting how wrong she was. In her older age, one of her best friends really was Black, and my mom admitted to her friend what her previous attitudes had been and why. And from those conversations, I was able to gain some insight as to what my mom's motivation was for her anti-Blackness. Because I think most people feel, since Asian Americans also are harmed by white supremacy, how does it make any sense for Asian Americans to be anti-Black? My mom spent most of her young life in Hong Kong when it was under British occupation, and then in the 1950s, she came to the United States when she was 16 years old. Generations before my mom, her family had been living in and doing business around Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Macau, which were French, British, and Portuguese occupied areas. So she was heavily indoctrinated into anti-Blackness in Hong Kong, where she had no exposure to Black people that would have shown her a different reality. And furthermore, what she was indoctrinated into is the idea that an Asian can elevate their status in white spaces by aligning with white supremacy, which includes aligning with anti-Blackness. So I think what my mom was doing with me is that from a young age, she saw that I was having a hard time as an Asian American assimilating. So she felt that if I associated with Black classmates, that would make assimilating into white spaces even harder. And she was concerned that associating with Black classmates would negatively impact my status in white spaces. Well, we all know with me that the outcome was I understand very clearly what spaces I want to be part of and what spaces I don't. So my mom was really proud that she was westernized. She was proud that she spoke English without an accent, that she was very well versed in European culture, and she actually looked down upon my dad for being what she called traditional and therefore backwards. Right, so where was my dad in all of this? My dad grew up in Taiwan, where he had no exposure to Black people, but he also had very little exposure to Western media. I think when he came to the United States, he was a bit uncertain around Black people because of the lack of familiarity and the slight media bias, but it only took a very little being around Black people to see that prejudice is irrational and that it serves a white supremacist agenda that he doesn't want to uphold. As I said before, in my household, it wasn't physically or emotionally safe to voice opinions that differed from my mom, so I do understand why my dad didn't speak up when my mom was being anti-Black. He had a hard enough time keeping my brother and I safe. However, what he would do is, when it was just my dad and I, he would make sure to teach me or give me resources about accurate Black history. So, for example, a lot of my mom's rhetoric surrounded musicians. So my dad would teach me about Berry Gordy, Chuck Berry, Marian Anderson, Jesse Norman. If the claim was that Black people don't value education, he would tell me about Black scholars, academics, and scientists, and so on. So that, in a nutshell, is what I was told at home behind closed doors when I was growing up.
I'm going to talk about it as much as I feel like, because I'm 29 years old. We didn't grow up like this. I have never dealt with anti-Black Asians until I joined this app. I have never dealt with that or even encountered that because we didn't grow up like that. Our families ain't like that. Our friends of our family ain't like that. So when I have these conversations and you comment how proudly anti-Black you are, you want to throw the rock and hide your hand, yes, I'm going to show my followers, because Asians in this country have a hard enough time as it is because they lump us in with y'all. That's why I'm making the distinct difference. You have those, like I repost every comment so y'all can learn the difference between the ones who hate anybody else of color, who hate anyone that's Black, especially those of us who speak up for other communities of color, especially any community that's Black, like ourselves. And then you have those who want us to just bury it and act like it don't exist. I'm not going to be one of those. Please don't lump us in with them.
I don't like African Black soap. You guys know what I'm talking about. The African Black soap.
Yes, I do know what you're talking about. Race baiting. That's what you're talking about. This kind of shit is why I almost quit comedy. It's the lowest form of attempted humor. It's so fucking embarrassing and disrespectful. Flirting with sounding like a racist to trigger people is not edgy comedy. In the year 2021, where Black Lives Matter has to exist for people to care about the Black community, you did this for what? So you could get clout on your skincare account? Not to mention the fact that we are trying to fight the anti-Blackness in our Asian community. You know that's a fucking thing. To ignore all that and make this flippin' TikTok about a bar of soap? Huh? You know what I think would be funny? If you broke out head to toe blistering zits from top to bottom and someone doused you with bottles of Proactive. And then to top it off, scrubbed you down with some St. Ives apricot scrub. Or maybe you just need to be kimchi slapped. 야, 이 자식아, 입 닥쳐!
Black Go back to your country. We don't welcome black people. Black people should go. You look so ugly with your dark skin color.
Ooh, I might be feeling some insecurity with this one, guys. Racism is not just an American problem, everyone. It's not just black and white. It's every color, every race. We all deal with this race issue, unfortunately. In this video, the person recording is a black woman who is trying to peacefully eat her meal in a Chinese restaurant within China when this random person comes up and starts berating her because of the color of her skin. That is not okay, and it needs to be called out. Racism is not okay. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. And if you think only one group of people can be racist, you're really missing the bigger picture here. And I thought we was cool. I love my Asians, man. Anyway, remember guys, we need to lead with love and not hate. If you do agree with that, go ahead and give me a follow so we can tackle the hate together.
I woke up out of my sleep because this needed to be said. Asians want to be black adjacent with white privilege. And just that thought alone, which is a very true thought, is kind of sickening because, again, I'll never stop speaking on it. They emulate black culture, black aesthetics, everything so heavily in the means of joking or because it's wacky. You know, white people try to say that all the time back in the day. Oh, black people do this wacky, funky stuff. And then hoopla, hoopla, they try to switch it to something else. They try to give it a different name. But it's sad because, again, Asian people know what it's like to experience racism, especially from white people, and to be oppressed by white people. However, they get that bit of what they feel is an amenity and they turn it towards black people. They want to be black adjacent with white privilege. And that's just the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
So Olandria and Shelly were bullies. But now Olandria is with Nick. And Olandria is now digestible to you because she is with a white man, right? If Olandria was not with Nick, she would still be called a bully, correct? Even though both of those girls weren't bullies and they did nothing wrong. Now there's a picture with Shelly going around with Sierra and people are saying, see, Shelly, I knew something was wrong with her. I knew, right? Now my thing with that is, it's just an excuse to not like a black woman. If you're a black person saying that Shelly is racist for hanging out with Sierra, you're a coon. And it's very obvious that it's just that you want to find a reason to not like a black girl because Jeremiah and Austin hung out, right? Nick hung out with Austin. There's nothing going on there, right? You're trying to pin two black women against each other like you don't already know that Shelly is friends with Sierra and Olandria knows that. What are you guys doing? And what needs to stop is constantly comparing two words. Nigga is not compared to that other word. I could say that right now. And the Asians who are trying to compare is disgusting. Behind that word nigga is a white man who was using nigger and whipping, graping, slashing, beheading. It's endless. And it's getting really disgusting that there's Asians in the comments trying to say, but if she said the N-word, then it would be... It's an offensive word, and it was wrong. She said it, and she got off the island. She apologized. You want her to lose her life now because you are fans of Huda, not because you actually care. Because if you actually cared, you could have gone on the app and said why that word is wrong and go about your day. But no, she deserves to have 0 followers and just have no friends, and it's all fake. Because if I look in your followings, I bet you I will find people who have said very offensive things, but that's okay, right? Like, this app is just so full of hypocrisy, and it's just pretend, and it's just racism, and it's whack.
I think the world owes black women an apology, and I think it all comes down to the fact that every single thing that might be deemed as ghetto or unclassy that a black woman does I've seen all of it here in Korea. For example, I've seen girls that dye their hair yellow, red, orange, any kind of color. They're wearing weaves, they're wearing extensions. They are like I've even seen a couple wear bonnets. I've seen a couple wear, these like hair rollers, but they're outside of the salon. Like they're like just crazy, crazy shit, right? And that's something I don't even see in the States, to be honest with you. And something that I've realized in my time here is that it really comes down to the idea that the perception is completely different. So for instance, if a black woman does it in the United States, it's perceived as being ghetto and unclassy. But then over here, it's like, oh, it's chic, it's cool, it's edgy, it's different, like you're hip. And like, that's lame. Like, that's lame as hell. And, frankly, as I see how much of like black culture has been adopted by the youth here, it kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth because, Korea in and of itself is actually quite prejudiced towards black people in general. And that's something that I've experienced a lot here in Hyundai Beach. And I wouldn't recommend it for black people at all. Like, if you want to come here because it's like a different vibe, but like in general, not really. Because here's the thing. They will listen to your music, our music. They will sit here and like say all the words, sing all the songs. They will, try to emulate the culture much as possible. But don't you get near me. Don't you get near me at all, because I want everything that you stand for, but I don't want to be associated with you, because at the end of the day, racism is still, at the forefront of all of it. And it's so corny to me, and I feel bad when I think about it more, because it's like when you hear a lot of these testimonies about a lot of women talking about, oh, how it's unfair and we shouldn't be treated this way, and we're being unfairly classified or whatever. I'm starting to realize that, wait a minute, that's like the truth. It's the truth. And there's almost like a mutilation of the culture that's going on globally, and it's just lame. It's lame. Like it's so funny. Coming here in Korea has made me so unincredibly pro-black that, yeah, like I don't even know. It's crazy. I don't even know what else to say at this point. It's wild.
Majority of the Asian business community is extremely exploitative and racist towards black people.
Okay, let's address this. My initial reaction to this was one of defensiveness and anger, and I'm sure many of you guys felt the same. But we should not disregard some very valid points that this creator makes. We do have a problem with anti-Blackness and colorism within our community. We see that with the discord between ethnic groups within our own community, and that translates out to how some of us treat people with darker skin outside of our community as well. Obviously, it's not all of us because we're not a racial monolith, but I have seen it, and I know you have seen it too. I think we tend to tense up when we hear other people calling out our community for racial prejudice. It's natural to feel defensive because the majority of us are not actively trying to hurt other people. But I think we have to understand that as human beings, we all have some sort of racial prejudice towards others. We're born into a racist society. We have had racist stereotypes hammered into us since birth. But we really need to make a good effort to listen, because if we don't listen, we can't be better for our own community and we can't be better allies. I have more to say in part 2.
This couldn't be farther from the truth. In fact, our greatest allies have been the black community. Black and Asian solidarity has a long, long history. And that's not to erase the examples from both sides of intolerance, hate, and violence. But at our best, we have long fought alongside each other, such as Frederick Douglass advocating for Chinese and Japanese immigration in 1869. Or when Henry Turner and Ida B. Wells spoke out on behalf of Filipino freedom fighters. Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, and many black protesters condemning the violence and war in Vietnam. Japanese Americans fighting alongside the black community to repeal the Emergency Detention Act. The powerful relationship between Yuri Kochiyama and Malcolm X. Grace Lee Boggs and her husband James Boggs. Jesse Jackson, the NAACP for Vincent Chin. And the majority of Asian Americans who support the Black Lives Matter movement.
I've never answered a question like this before, and it cuts me up. Like, what did they have to tell you to make you hate us? So in Asian families, especially immigrant Asian families, we have our own version of a race talk. Mine was a Chinese family, and in our house, the talk sounded like soft racism, not like eugenics. There was never any insulting of Black intelligence or Black abilities or Black people. It was more practical than that. And it was all about safety. If you want to be safe, you have to align yourself with power. And if you want a piece of the American dream, you need to follow the money, follow the power, and that meant following the white brick road. My dad told me that I could marry a white man or a Chinese man, but preferably a white man and not a Black man. So what's unspoken there is that Asian men don't have much power either, and Black men have less, but white men have all the power. And me as an Asian girl had no power at all, that all of my power depended on a man. So it's not just soft racism, it's also soft sexism. And that is the model minority brainwash in a nutshell. It is based on a terrible dark side of the American dream that is anti-Blackness. It cuts me to the core.
Question. This actually is a serious question. Why don't you like us Black people? Non-American Asians always gave me the cold shoulder. American Asians were cool and I often hang out with them. Are they just not used to us?
Partially.
Sad to say, but I know that there's anti-Blackness very much so in a lot of Asian American communities. And obviously, unfortunately, anti-Blackness is global. And I think
it's a very long historical answer.
Yeah.
Some of it has to do with not being used to it. Okay, so colonization happened throughout the whole world when white colonizers took over Asia, Africa, all the other continents. And with that came the belief of anti-Blackness that was instilled upon all of these communities. Now, once those colonizations ended, you were left with this homogenized community where they don't know anyone who don't look like they're all white, all Asian, all South Asian, whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden you fast forward to having technology and Western media, because again, controlled by whiteness, is pushing out this message of that Black communities are gangsters, do this, they do that. And then that media gets pushed out into the world in the form of movies and TV shows. And now you take this homogenized community who has learned anti-Blackness through colonization and stuff like that, on top of the fact that it's then mixed with people who are learning about these races for the first time through fictionized television that is controlled by white media. And then you have this biased look. So when they meet Black people for the first time, they're having to reconcile what they have been essentially brainwashed into thinking versus then trying to figure out what that means when they meet you and they're like, but you're not any of these things. Which is the reason why you get a lot of people from Asia who are having to go through that discovery, and Asian Americans who grew up with that and know that those are things that are essentially propaganda, mind washing, to keep upholding this idea of, and instead of using the WS word, I'm going to say anti-Blackness, because one is,
hand in hand, and they push this anti-Blackness, then it's basically global propaganda. So then people are trying to, come to those terms. And instead of just being hateful, they may just not understand. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's like the short end of it.
Yeah. I mean, I have nothing to contribute. That was very concise. A lot of people are just conditioned to believe that Black people are whatever the conditioner wants you to believe they are.
Yep.
And, like my grandma, the only Black people she'd ever seen were American soldiers in Korea. And to her, they were all part of the same group. And then when she came to America, all she knew about Black people was, like you said, what she had seen on TV, what people had told her. And so she was very distrusting of Black people. And I was like, how many Black people are just like everybody else? Like, I go to school with Black kids, like, and she was just like, oh no, they're very dangerous. I'm like, they're not. This is just what people wanted you to believe. But, what else did she know? You know what I mean? She's just this like, country girl from, uneducated, and is told by everybody in power what to believe. My God is better. My people are better. My guns are better. So she's like, okay, well, all of these things are better. So I better side with the better side.
Yep.
If you're surprised about Piker, then you're new here, because look at what happened to the Red Scare. Look at what happened to Amber Ailey Frost. Okay, think about what Chapo Trap House was like, right? This is all post-Occupy, DSA core anti-Blackness, because it's an anti-Black country. Nothing about this should fucking surprise you. The dirtbag left, right? They are fucking anti-Black. Especially the ones who are non-white, or like situationally non-white, like Amber Ailey Frost or Hassan Piker. Of course they are. Of course they are. They are immigrant exceptionalists. There has to be a term for this. They are immigrant exceptionalists. They believe that they are better than Black people. They believe that the reason that Black people don't thrive in America is because they aren't hardworking and they aren't smart. Hassan Piker has no analysis of anti-Blackness. He has no analysis of anti-Blackness. When he talks about immigration, there's no understanding that Black people are enduring similar conditions and have been since the founding of this country. He has no analysis of that. He has no analysis of that. And look, I tuned into a show because, I don't swirl, but he was advertising pit, and I am gay. At the end of the day, I'm fucking gay. So I'm there for the pits. I turned into his little pit show. And you can tell that the reason why he is famous is beginning and end, point blank period, because he is sexy. He is sexy. And he is sexy. But he'll have people on the show who very obviously are white supremacists, like Grimes. Grimes talking about, do you need to be that jacked? Like, we get it. You're a sexy man. Like, I'm not going to lie about that. He's a fucking sexy man. But, like, at the end of the day, the man is anti-Black. Like, none of his takes say, I have a progressive opinion on Black people. Like, just none of them. And I've listened to more than one of the show. Like, I don't fuck with him like that. All my comrades know. Like, I straight don't fuck with Hassan Piker. He gets on my last motherfucking nerve. There are times when you turn into him to look at a live stream of, like, the mayoral debate or, like, a presidential address, just to see what, leftist socialists are saying. But, like, his ascendancy with the DSA is concerning. His ascendancy in socialist spaces specifically is concerning. There has to be more than a sexy white ginger. Like, you have to elevate people who you don't find specifically attractive. And the thing about the DSA is they're homely. Rarely do I talk about anybody's looks, because I understand. I know what I look like. The DSA as a whole, though, there's a difference between being ugly and homely. And the DSA is homely. It looked like nobody got dressed. They just tortoise shell glasses and flannel all the way down to the floor. And as somebody who did in Occupy in Oakland, okay, this is post-Occupy stuff, right? Like, people got tired of being the 99%, and now they are actively and rapidly aligning themselves with the center. They are the DSA is the center at this point, right? Like, the liberals, especially liberal media, is right. That is right media. If you have beliefs to the left of the DSA, you are the actual left. And we can see this with Mondani's run. We can see this with his run. So I'm not shocked because I've listened to the show. Like, this is not my first introduction to Hassan Piker. Of course he's anti-Black. Most of them are anti-Black. I'm sure some of the Black people are anti-Black who do this kind of commentary as well. Like, we're in a moment where you're either with us or you're not. And people's beliefs about Black people, especially Black Americans, and also Black conflicts around the world, Black genocides around the world, are really the benchmark of their leftism, because it doesn't go that far. It really only extends to white and non-Black people.
Last Sunday, an Asian American convenience store owner in Columbia, South Carolina, Rick Chow, shot and killed 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton in the back after wrongly accusing him of stealing water. And because this bears so much resemblance to the murder of Latasha Harlins from 32 years ago, it's hard to resist the feeling that we've made no progress. I know that we have made progress. I see work being done. I see exchange being had. I see coalition being built. But it is so hard to grieve and process the unjustifiable loss of a child. And it is the criminalization of Black people and the harm that that does to children in particular that motivates so much of my work. I became activated in earnest in 2012 with the death of Trayvon Martin. At that time, I was teaching a class in Hunts Point, and the theater that my class was held in doesn't get very warm in the colder months. So that day in November, I went, and the boys in my class, who are about 10 to 13 years old, were all shivering in their t-shirts. And I asked them, where are your jackets and where are your hoodies? And one of the students said to me, my mom won't let me wear a hoodie anymore because she's afraid that I could get shot. And then 2 years later with Michael Brown, those little boys are now becoming teenagers, and just watching them question their mortality from the lens of being Black, and being aware that from a young age they have been viewed as potentially dangerous and criminal, and they are not seen as the individuals and the human beings that they are. And so I wanted to know, how can I help? I've known that when I was growing up, my dad referred to us as privileged minorities, and I wanted to know, how do I use my privilege to help others? I think that's where a lot of people start. And that's when I learned about the model minority myth. And when I first read about the model minority myth, it made sense to me. It clicked for me. I did not have a difficult time accepting it, because I understood that it didn't diminish the struggles that my parents experienced throughout their lifetime and their hard work, and how they raised me and my hard work and my family's accomplishments. But it made me realize how Asian Americans are weaponized in the United States to oppress Black people. And that made me realize that I am not somebody who is helping people who need my help. The work that needs to be done is on myself and in my community. And Asian Americans, we still have a lot of work to do.
So when a lot of people start to consider moving abroad, especially people of color, their first question when looking at different countries is this country racist? Or do they like Black people? Or do they like insert this race? And within my first few months in Indonesia, I didn't really have much complaints about racism, because of course I would get the normal stares here and there, but the past few weeks have been a bit intense for me. I'm planning to move out of my apartment that I'm in right now. I've just had a lot of issues where the maintenance has not helped me. Like, I didn't have hot water. Every issue that I've had has not really been met with the urgency that I've wanted. So obviously before moving abroad, I was not able to firsthand visit apartments and pick them out myself. My job went out of their way to survey different apartments, compile a long list of which ones that I might like, and I went through those options and chose which one would fit me best. I made the executive decision, letting my job know that I do not want to stay here. In my contract, it states that if I choose to move out of the apartment that they helped me select, I have to do the search on my own. And I thought the process would be very simpler and similar to America, where you just look up the local places in the neighborhood and reach out to see if they have any open units and then tour. But it's been the complete opposite. It's been extremely excruciating for me. I'm realizing that a lot of owners are racist and discriminatory as fuck. So there was one specific apartment that I was sent before I moved to Indonesia, and obviously I said no because I chose this place. And since I'm looking for a new place, I was like, okay, let me just check out the other apartments that I was offered before I came here. So I reached out to the leasing agent that my job put me in contact with, and this woman was extremely racist to me. She told me that I could tour the apartment. Then the day of, she told me that there are no longer any apartments in the building. It is like 3 different buildings, and you're telling me there's not a single one open, and that she could show me apartments in a separate apartment building, which is the one I already live in, because the owner does not rent out to foreigners. So basically the agent that I spoke with, she would not let me tour the apartment because I was a foreigner. And I'm aware that in Indonesia, a lot of people, specifically if you want to start a business or do certain things, they're quite wary to work with foreigners, and it's more reliable to work with an Indonesian. Basically, the woman said that the owner doesn't want any foreigners in the building at all. And I was very confused by that because, like I said, I was offered a space in this apartment before I came. It wasn't until I spoke to someone that works with the same company as me. She's a white woman and she's also from America, and she lives in that building. So that's when I knew that it was definitely an issue of racism rather than me being a foreigner. So the white woman that I spoke to who lives in that building, her name is Jules, and when I told her about the situation, she was able to reach out to another agent in that building, and they were able to help me like right away, wanted to give me the tours, wanted to help me out. But when I spoke to the other agent, she said that no foreigners are allowed, the owner doesn't want any foreigners living there. So it was very strange to me that I'm being told by one agent that foreigners are not allowed to live there. There are no apartments at all left in the building, and there's just a strict rule on foreigners living there. And another woman who is a white woman who lives there, who is a foreigner, who is from the same country as me, is talking to a separate agent, and they're saying that I can live there and that they have multiple options for me to tour. So I actually brought this up to my boss at work, and she told me that the building had a history of issues with African people in the past, so the owner was very wary to rent out apartments to Black people. So I got literal confirmation that I was denied entry to tour an apartment because I am Black and I am of African descent. Obviously, I don't want this to strongly impact anybody's decision if they plan to move to Indonesia. I do want everyone, especially people of color, to make an educated decision. And of course, consider having an Indonesian agent help you look for an apartment, or else you will be limited to options that are super unfair. In America, you could easily file a housing discrimination case in a situation like this, whereas in Indonesia, this is just the norm.
So family, at the end of the day, everybody is one. No matter your race, no matter your color, no matter your intonation, no matter your language, everybody is one human being. So we all need to start treating one another the way you treat your same color, treat everybody equal. Okay, peace, and thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure to always come back and watch more, because I'll be dropping you for you guys real juicy new updates every single day. Okay, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you find it very interesting. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye, and stay safe.